Hello, everyone. Welcome to Penalty Box Radio. We have the gang back together here, minus Glenn. She had something going on, so she couldn't join us, but really happy to have everyone here. We have Danielle, Abigail, Sam, Jack, Peyton, Jonah joining us, everyone who's contributed on air with us this season, and really happy to have the gang here to talk about the NHL return to play plan, which I know confused some people. It just kind of hit everybody like a ton of bricks, and we're going to discuss that tonight. And we have a lot to get to because I want to make sure everybody gets to their points of view, because the good thing is about having this many people, we're probably going to have some different opinions on things, but we're going to cover the return to play plan. We're also going to talk about Alabama Huntsville and what's going on there as well with them, because they're trying to save that program. So we have a lot of things to discuss right now. And the return to play plan, just kind of briefly going over it for folks that still trying to catch up. 24 teams are going to make the quote-unquote playoffs. The regular season is over. So that means they're just cutting it off right there. 7 teams will not be participating in these 24-team playoffs. There's going to be a play-in round, which the Nashville Predators will be a part of. They'll be playing the Arizona Coyotes if the league is able to return to play. Remember, I want to remind everyone, this is the plan to return to play. It is not set yet. That's why they don't have dates. This is the actual plan that they'll go with whenever is deemed safe for the league to return to play. So they actually have a plan in place approved by the league and the NHLPA. So 24 teams, 12 in each conference. Top 4 will get the bye from the play-in, and they'll play each other for seeding. The Predators will not be getting that bye, as they're going to be playing the Arizona Coyotes. That could be interesting as well. So we're going to look into this and see what everything is going to – we're going to break it down, the round robin, testing that's going to occur, all this kind of stuff with operations. So let's go ahead and just go ahead and get it started. So we're going to start off with Abigail. Abigail, you first year covering the Predators here as well and seeing all these updates. Just go ahead and just slam us. What are your thoughts on this entire situation going on with the return to play plan? And what are your thoughts on this return to play?
The return to play plan kind of took me by surprise. I mean, of course, everybody got the notification. Gary Bettman is going to be doing the conference call, and everyone was like, oh my goodness, we're getting hockey back. And I think there's a lot of mixed feelings going on with this. Jack Woods earlier had a great article. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. Read through that. That was fantastic. There's a lot of pros and a lot of cons. For me, I don't know where to stand personally, because there are a lot of things to go into this. It's not safe, but the main thing is I'm very, very glad that the NHL is letting the players make this decision. They work so closely with the NHLPA, and if the players want to play, then I think we have to give them that opportunity. I'm so thankful that the league wasn't just saying, okay, go out and go play. But there's so many things that go into this a lot deeper, going into the hub cities, and which I know we will touch on later. But the Preds are going to have to, in their aspect, every single team that is going to make it into that qualifying has to go through them first, and then they're going to go into the seeding. And it's a very confusing little rundown that we have to go through, that is for sure. But teams want to play, players want to play, but I think this can go down a lot further than the basics of the players and the coaches. It also goes into event staff, how clean can everything be, but also what players are going to decide to play and what players are going to decide not to play, because that can break up a lot of team chemistry. Will coaches hold on a grudge to that? And what players are we going to see not participate because they don't feel that it's safe for either themselves or their families? You got to think a lot of players have had kids be born during this time as well. That's a big risk to take. And so I'm very curious to see who's going to pick up to play and who's going to decide to sit it out. And that's really what it comes down to for me, I think.
No, very, very good points. And David Poyle addressed the local media here today, and he even addressed a lot of these things as well, too, is that it's all voluntary. The NHL cannot, it said to the teams that they cannot mandate people return. It is voluntary in terms of returning to facilities for practice and things of that sort right now. We'll see once they get further on in the phases, and you made good points, too, as well. Players able to return. Maybe there's injuries. We already know there's going to be players that are going to return from injury that were thought to miss the entire season, and now all of a sudden they're going to be healthy. Seth Jones being one of them. He's a big addition for the Columbus Blue Jackets to make a push there for them. So it's going to be interesting to see. And then other players we already know are going to be out. Nick Bustad is going to be out as well. So it's going to be interesting to see which turn these players take. So now we're going to hand it over to Danielle. Danielle, go ahead and share your thoughts and opinions on this return to play plan.
Abigail, I agree a lot with you with the players we're listened to, and they want to play hockey, and that's what they're doing now. And if this plan, Corona granted, works, they are building on next season, and they're aiming towards a full season, which is something that's really important because the players want to play. They're athletes. That's their nature, is to play, and that's what's being focused on. And there are some questionable things, as in how are they going to keep everything clean? How are they going to get people in hotels? But looking at the bigger picture here, whenever they start their small group training in phase 2, they have a month and a half to train and they haven't trained in 2 months now. So obviously they have to get back into the swing of things, but they have a lot of time in small groups before training camps to work and to prevent injuries. And a lot of people are concerned, how are these guys going to stay healthy physically and avoid the virus? But granted, the time that this plan would give the players, they have time to build and to avoid injury, which is something that is a giant priority, because if players are injured, the plan's never going to work. And Abigail, you did say, Justin, you said there are players who are questionable about it. I know that Nick Bonino mentioned a while ago that he was questionable about it, and there are players who are skeptical. I know in an interview earlier, David Poyle said that nobody feels comfortable, but at this point, they are getting back into it slowly, and they're taking precautions as needed. So it's a good thing. There are a lot of cons and a lot of pros, like you said, Abigail, but I think that this plan is very well thought out. Jack, you mentioned that in your article, and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, good points. And something I'll throw at Jack and Sam to address, and maybe not right now, but even further on, since both of you have been, and Abigail as well, and Danielle, good Lord, we have a lot of athletes on here, is to think about if you were never allowed to train the way you're typically allowed to train in your off seasons, how that can affect you when it comes to injury and health and everything as well. So hockey players in the off season, they have the opportunity to get on ice when they want to, as well as their off ice training. But right now, it's mostly, for the most part, aside from the ones that are in Europe and the Nordic countries, they haven't been able to touch the ice, a lot of the North American players, and that's detrimental to their health and their bodies and how long it takes to get back into shape. We see, especially when a player has a lower body injury, how long it takes for them to get back into game shape, because that's everything to them. So with that being said, Jack, your turn.
Well, I tend to err on the side of caution during this whole thing. I think we waited around for 2 months, and then we finally get this notification that, hey, we are going to try and play the rest of the season. And I think that, they had plenty of opportunities to cancel the season and award the President's Trophy to the Boston Bruins, and then hopefully get to start up in October. But, this is what I like to call the best of a weird situation. They clearly went through and ticked every single box about people's concerns for the players' health, at least in terms of COVID-19. They want players to get back on the ice. They want coaches to get behind the benches. They want to get hockey up and rolling. But as I mentioned in my article, they're far and away from playoff form in terms of team chemistry, how a power play moves, going through the neutral zone and all that. Like, there is just a lot of hockey that is going to be missing. You're going to see a lot of action that looks like the first of the year, and teams really aren't in playoff form until about mid-November. At least the really good teams are. Poor Detroit, but it is. I'm very skeptical about the return to play. And one guy that I want to mention, and I mention a lot, is Kyle Turris, because you remember 2 years ago when he got hurt, and he had a lot of difficulty getting his legs back under him. And now, you're looking at a league-wide problem that Kyle Turris went through in terms of getting back on the ice, in terms of, getting back into hockey shape. And Danielle referenced Jeremy Gover's tweet per David Poyle that not everybody is comfortable right now. And, I'm not so sure that playing hockey should be at the utmost priority right now. But if it is, then player safety, player health needs to come first in every single situation.
A good point, Jack. And that's why I asked that question, David Poyle. It was about mental health. And that's one of the things that I want to say is not being focused on as much, but we all know, because we've all seen it, whether it's with friends or family or just in the NHL and sports, mental health is something that needs to be discussed way more. And you think about everyone's mental health right now with what we've been dealing with the pandemic, and how we've all been separated from a lot of our family and friends for a long period of time. Those of us that do have office jobs have not been able to be in an office to be around coworkers. We haven't been able to enjoy sports or concerts or things like that like normally. And that affects our mental health. Players, so that's why I asked the question, and maybe is one of those things they didn't feel comfortable answering as much, but that's why I asked the question of players and staff are going to potentially be separated from their families for 2-3 months, because once they go in isolation, they're in isolation until they're out. And people will make that excuse of, oh, well, they're getting paid millions of dollars, they can handle it. Well, staff members aren't getting paid millions of dollars. A lot of these coaches, equipment manager, a team trainer, that these essential staff members that'll have to be there to be part of the team are not getting millions of dollars in pay, yet they're still going to have to go through the same sacrifices that the players will have to be going through. So the mental health is going to be very, very important as we're going through this, making sure there's, access to all these different opportunities for them to talk, access to make sure it's easy for them to talk to their families. Of course, we all have technology, but it's making sure that is instated that, hey, call your family. Hey, make sure you take some time to talk with your kids. Mental health is going to be very good, just as very important, just as much as physical health when we're going through all this. Okay, handing it over to Sam.
Well, I agree so far with what Abigail, Danielle, and Jack and you, Justin, have said. It's kind of shocking that the NHL made this announcement, but like we said, it's if it's safe to return to play. And I think it's smart with this training camp to give these guys time to acclimate to this new style of the NHL. No fans, limited staff. It's going to be a weird environment watching a hockey game on TV with no fans, and especially like the Bridgestone Arena playoff crowd. You're not going to hear any of that now. But we've had sports back. We've had the PGA Tours getting ready to come back here in June at the down in Texas, and then we've had NASCAR back for a while. But a lot of people will think, okay, we've seen that sports can work from a social distance, but you've got to think the NHL is different. These guys are checking each other on the ice. They're close to each other. They're sitting on the bench next to the guys they're playing with. So the NHL is really the testing league to see how this works for other sporting divisions like the NBA, like the NFL when that comes up in the fall, even the MLB, which we don't know when that's coming back, in the MLS, because soccer is a very similar sport. But I think Gary Bettman did a really good job addressing all the concerns, and I think they're doing the best that they can to keep these players safe. And, I really do hope it works out, because it'd be fun to have some late summer hockey into August, possibly September. And I miss watching hockey. I miss playing hockey. But first and foremost, we got to keep these players safe, because they're the ones that keep these teams going. And then we can eventually work our way to getting fans back in the stands.
And they're the ones that make the money for the owners as well. And you brought up a good point that this league is now, they're at the forefront of at least having a plan compared to other team sport leagues. Yeah, NASCAR is a little different. It's a team sport, but it's a different kind of team where you can be distant, and the individual competing is out there in a car. So it is very different from this, where there's high contact like there are in all these other sports, or where you're in a dugout, on a bench, on the sideline, breathing, coughing, sneezing, whatever, all over each other. Very different. And so now we see as well with the league, everyone's talking about it right now. Just like everyone was talking about NASCAR when they made that big comeback, and on a Wednesday night, people are talking about NASCAR when they typically aren't. So the NHL knows this is a big deal for them. There's an opportunity to introduce people to hockey as well when they're just craving sports, when they typically don't watch hockey because it's at a weird time when it's going to be playing. I mean, the final would be going on right now, and we're not even going to start until when free agency usually is getting going. So it's going to be very interesting. You even brought up football, because college football, we're even noticing as well with colleges can't even get on the same page when they think it'll be safe to play college football. And you think about how many just Division I teams there are, let alone Division III and NAI, everything like that. All that's going to trickle down, and every sport's going to be a little bit different. So it's just going to be interesting to see how this plays out as we get into the summer and the fall and even the winter as well, when the next season potentially would start in December or January as well. So Peyton, going to hand it over to you, bud.
As far as the playoff format is concerned, from a fairness standpoint and from an entertainment standpoint, I think they did as good a job of putting everything together as they could. Obviously, weren't able to finish out the regular season, so some of the teams that were battling for bubble positions in the playoffs now get a chance. We've seen the sports leagues that have been able to come back experiment with different things. We've seen NASCAR experiment with midweek races, and now we're seeing the NHL experiment with this play-in round, and also they've moved back to more conference-based format. So it's going to be interesting to see, and we've talked about when it comes back, if it comes back, it's going to, with it being two hub cities, hockey's going to be on your TV quite a lot. It'll be like the first day of March Madness.
No, that's a very good point, because you think if there's going to be 12 teams in each city for a while, there's going to be a ton of games for the first week or so. So it's going to be very interesting.
It's going to be like the SEC tournament.
Oh, boy. All right. So, Jonah, hopefully your connection's doing all right there, buddy. Let's hear what you have to say.
All right. I hope you can hear me. If you can, that's cool. If you can't, that's quite sad. But the one thing that I have to say about it is, what if there's one player that tests positive? I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, and some people be like, well, it's just one. But, how the rate of infection works, it's usually, someone will test positive, and then you would find out that there's other people who are having symptoms, and then you just have a big mess all inside like one little hub in one little space. And so, like the testing, I think that constant testing is going to be very essential. And I know that like there's been a lot of tests bought, but I'm just saying that one thing you have to do and to make sure that happen is constant testing to make sure that this all works out smoothly. One of the things that I've heard is that one positive test will not stop the entire, tournament, which
For now.
that kind of confuses for now, of course, but that just really throws me off. I'm just like, but like one person, in the NBA when Rudy Gobert was announced, that was the one player that said that's the one player that kind of made the whole league stop. And so could you see something like that happen if they were about to start this tournament, they had everybody in their little hub cities, and then one player turned up positive? That's kind of all I have to say about that.
Well, it is going to be interesting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later, because Gary Bettman and Bill Daly addressed that as well. And I think it's a very fluid situation. I know that's a term that we've been using now for months, but think back of how much we've learned since the Rudy Gobert situation, that hopefully there's a way that they can isolate these problems and be able to go on and not have to do shutdowns. But if it goes into that, then they may have to say, you know what, we're going on a 3-4 day pause to have everybody, make sure everybody's tested, staff included and everything, and see what happens. Even though it may take a longer period of time for incubation, that's probably what they're going to do. And since everyone's supposed to be isolated, it's going to be very interesting and curious to see what they're doing with hotel staff, catering staff, because you're going to have hundreds of people in one place, but hopefully the isolation keeps them safe enough. And so Gary Bettman said they're spending millions of dollars to make sure, because it's going to be daily testing once they're in phase 4. Once we're in the playing phase, it'll be evening testing every night. Players will get tested. But in phase 2, phase 3, it's still a lot of it's up to teams on what they're going to do with testing and so on and so forth. So it's going to be very curious to see what they're going to do with that, because obviously they don't want to put the season on a pause, especially if you just start say it's day 3 and all of a sudden you have a positive test. It would, I don't want to say ruin things, but it would really be a damper on things in terms of that's not what they want to do. And they want to make sure they're taking the best steps possible. And you can see that as well. That's where you heard all these rumors coming out, because there's been so much talk about trying to come up with the best plan possible. Things are going to leak because they're just going to leak with that many people talking about it. The Board of Governors and David Poole even said that, been on the phone constantly now for weeks trying to figure things out. So let's move on and let's talk about the Nashville Predators and this format and what's going to be good or potentially bad for them. And my first thought is that we've seen the Nashville Predators be a team on paper that should be a lot better than they are performing in terms of consistency throughout this season. If there was a team, because we're all very familiar with the Predators, that this could help, I think it would be the Nashville Predators, because this is a reset mentally, a reset physically, a reset everything for Coach Hines, for the players, for Roman Josi, the captain, for Pekka Rinne, who has had some of his ups and downs this season as well, for Juuse Saros, who struggled a little bit and then finally got into the rhythm. There's opportunity for reset here, which they did not have that during the regular season. We all know they should be better than what they were doing. Maybe this is the opportunity for them to finally make things click. We don't know. First, we're going to flip it around, and we're going to start off with Peyton to talk about how this could poorly or greatly affect the Nashville Predators.
To be determined. Nashville is, still a really good team on paper, and they really hit their stride right at the beginning of the pandemic. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can get right back in their groove. It seemed like the John Hines' system had really started to kick in at the end. And, we've heard certain members of the media talk about Arizona and how Nashville is going to sweep past them. But we know that Arizona is definitely no slouch. And especially if you get hot goaltending from where we've seen Darcy Kemper, if they've used Antti Ranta, they've got a lot of good young forwards in Arizona. And there's some kind of mojo about Nashville sometimes just not being able to beat them. So it's going to be very interesting and very evenly matched, I think.
I see the ghosts of Andrei Kostitsyn and Alexander Radulov just floating everywhere throughout this. Okay, flip it. Let's go with Jonah. Your thoughts on this with the Predators?
Oh my goodness! Once I saw that draw of Arizona, I'm like, this is that perfect. Like everybody else who doesn't, all the casual fans per se, who just look at Arizona and be like, oh, it's just Arizona, and then just all the Preds fans who just know the thorn in the backside that these Arizona Coyotes have been to the Predators. I think back all the way back when they played them. I was a little small boy. They had like Shane Doan. And for some reason, we still lost then. But the thing is, I usually use Arizona when I'm playing on NHL because they're such a sneaky good team. Not a lot of people who are just casual fans give Arizona the credit that they deserve. And I feel like the Preds have to solve their Arizona issue or they could be out within, the first round. But also, that isn't bad because if you're out in the first round, you have a slim chance of getting the first overall pick. And I believe that part is the craziest thing about this entire situation. All right, back to you guys.
No, you make a good point. David Poyle even addressed that. He's like, I would not want to be in that boat to where we play in the play and lose, and then all of a sudden are in the round for the draft. I want to be either or. I'd rather be in the first 7 or rather be in the playoffs, not in that buffer zone, which is a very unique zone to be in because your chances are so slim, like you said, Jonah, but then you're not also playing the playoffs. So you're screwed when you're in that point. And you make a good point too about undervaluing, especially the Arizona Coyotes should be also another team that should be better than what they are, giving a lot of the talent on their roster. So with that, I know Sam had a lot to talk about when it comes to the Arizona Coyotes. I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah, and I've gotten the chance to see the Coyotes twice this year. Once when they came to Nashville. I was actually with Jack and Danielle at that game. And then I got to go in November when they played the Columbus Blue Jackets. And this Arizona Coyotes team has been incredible under Rick Tocchet, I believe is the head coach over there. And he brought Phil Kessel, one of his favorite players from Pittsburgh. But it's not been the Kessel show down there. And it's not even been the Taylor Hall show, who they acquired midway through the season. I look at a guy like Jacob Chikrin, a very underrated, fast-skating defenseman, along with Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Nick Schmaltz leading the way, only 46 points for the leading scorer of the Coyotes, along with Clayton Keller, who's probably one of the better young players in the league. But they have Mikael Granlund, and if people follow Mikael Granlund, he's one of the fastest players in the NHL and will rip defenses apart. He might not score a lot of goals, but Grabner can be a difference maker. And then Darcy Kemper and Antti Raanta debatably could be one of the best duos in the league goaltending. Kemper was in net, I think, for both of the games I saw, and he kept the Coyotes in it. That Preds game especially. Both the goalies head-to-head were really good. So to touch on the Preds briefly, I mean, they had that really good game against the Montreal Canadiens to end before this dead period happened. And Philip Forsberg looked the best he had in a while. He was starting to heat up. We even saw Ryan Johansson start to heat up. But will this time down for players like Matt Duchene, Kyle Turris, maybe even a Ryan Ellis who was out for a while with an injury? Could they be back on a level playing field? So I think for both teams, it's a good break. Arizona had a great start to the year. They kind of tailed off even after they got Hall. But this is going to be a series. I think this may be one of the best series in both conferences amongst the playoff round. No bias, but just from a neutral standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I think this absolutely has potential to go 5 games, just given the talent and the matchup. I mean, we all know it comes down to matchups a lot of times, and that matchup, I think, has very much high potential to go 5. All right, Jack.
So I'm going to reference the game that Sam and Danielle and I watched in Nashville. Nashville barely hung on and won. I mean, it came down to like the last minute when, that Coyote puck movement was starting to get to the Nashville Predators a little bit. And it was actually a fluke goal on how they won because Arvidsson takes that right side slapper and it goes in, kind of just rolls in. They really relied on puck luck that night, and they were outplayed for the majority of the game. And I'm curious to see what Viktor Arvidsson looks like after they start playing again, because he was a guy that was holding on to a lot of injuries throughout the year. You know, he fought his way back. He had that lower body injury thanks to Robert Bertuzzo, and then he just sort of cycled through. And you know, guys like Philip Forsberg and Ryan Johansson never really got going. And you know, I look at Phil the Thrill, hot dog eating Phil Kessel, who leads the Arizona Coyotes in power play goals with 9. And, you know, Carl Soderberg's second with 6. So it's not that Phil Kessel isn't doing things. It's just that he's doing things in one specific area. And, you know, I'm curious to see what Roman Josi looks like and Mikael Granlund looks like after this, because they were hauling this Predators team in terms of offense. UC Saros, Pekka Rinne, UC Saros sort of emerged as the number 1 right before we hit that quarantine. So, you know, there are just a lot of question marks on both sides. And like Sam said, it's going to be one of the most fun matchups to watch on either conference in the first round.
Boy, you make a really good point about Mikael Granlund. He was lighting it up. He was on fire. Roman Josi has just been fire all season. Josi for Norris. And that's what we saw too. So you hope that some of those streaks where it's finally clicking for Granlund, that he's able to keep that going, because it looked like the system clicked for him, that he had more freewheeling time, and that's what you need out of a player like that. So, okay, Danielle, over to you.
I think that this situation isn't necessarily a good thing for the Predators, but they have the potential to take it and to run with it. We have all agreed that this matchup is evenly split. They split it 50-50 in the regular season, but at this point, I'm not sure if there's truly an advantage to either side. They're starting practically fresh after these couple of months off, and both teams, like you guys have all said, the Predators, there's just something about them where they struggle to beat Arizona, but at this point, it's like the first game of the season. And so their chances right now are pretty evenly set against Arizona. They were very inconsistent at the end of the season. Sam, you said that Heinz system was slowly starting to creep up, and then all of a sudden it came to a halt. But at this point, it's a fair game on both sides. And goaltending, Jack, is something that you brought up. And with Kemper, I think that it's going to be interesting to see if they start Saros or if they start Rinne, because Saros did have the hot glove at the end of the season. Pekka Rinne struggled a little bit this year. This was the first season that he's kind of shown some weakness. So I think goaltending is definitely going to be a key here, and I'll be curious to see who steps up.
It absolutely will be. And hey, apparently there's unlimited goaltenders for this. So obviously we're going to see Connor Ingram up with the Preds too. And we'll see, obviously I'm assuming Troy Grosnick will be there, so they'll have 2 and 2. But we'll see, because it's still, remember, there's going to be that limit of 50 once they actually get to the playing games. Okay, Abigail.
So I'm with Danielle a lot on that of what she said. I don't think that there's any advantage here for any team that's playing right now. You went from playing and, you know, you're pushing towards the playoff. You want to make it. You're going to get those wins. And now they're just, you know, at home. Roman Josi and a lot of other players are buying their own workout equipment. You went from being there constantly, and now you're taken away from it. You're put in this life of isolation, not around hockey, not around the players. But I think it's going to come down to goaltending as well. I know Danielle and I talked about it a lot today about who would you rather see in net? Would it be UC or would it be Pekka? Because yes, Pekka is struggling, but now you got to think, has he taken this time to his advantage and used it for his well-being and getting himself better? And that goes all around for this Nashville Predators team. Jack, you mentioned Arvidsson earlier, and I think that this could have been a good time for him to get things going mentally, get things going physically, and that goes all around for the team and for every NHL team out there. Who is going to be mentally prepared? Who is going to be physically prepared for their own players, for themselves? What goaltender during training camp, as I'm sure we're going to see a decision of what goaltender is going to, you know, take forward in this play in potentially to the playoffs if they get to that point as well. And the only advantages are that right there, the mentality of their own players in their own, and also, again, like I mentioned earlier, what players aren't you going to see in this play in or play off? Who's going to decide not to play? And I don't think there's any other advantages from that. Anything that happened in the regular season, Danielle, like you said, this is fair game. This is clear. And that matchup was already fair enough. And now that nobody's been on the ice, whatever momentum was there is gone. And if there wasn't momentum, which is good for the Preds, you know, that works.
Fabulous points from everyone. That's why I'm so glad we're all able to get together and talk about this. You're bringing up some great points. So I want to kind of open up the discussion now, because we've all been able to just say what we wanted to say just about some of the main points concerning the Preds and the return to play. But now is a lot about the operations. And I know Jonah touched on this a little bit too, but in terms of hub cities, daily testing, limited staff, it's one of those things that if you have an opinion on this and wanted to share your thoughts, because I know it's been a long time since we've been able to express our opinions on sports, because there haven't been team sports like this to talk about, our bread and butter, which is hockey. We haven't been able to talk about it because there's been new news. And I think you all know me, I don't like rumors or just making news out of non-news. I want concrete stuff for us to actually touch on and report on. So raise your hand here if you have something you want to say just about the entire operations behind this. Jack, go for it.
So I like the idea of 2 hub cities. I like that idea in that, if something does break out, it's going to stay in one city. That's also a really bad thing because, if something does get out, you're not talking about, 1 or 2 teams or 3 or 4 teams. You're talking about an entire conference worth of players that are now at risk to catch a potentially fatal disease. Like I said, it's the best of a weird situation. And that's all I got to say about it because, we're not trying to get political here. So
weird is a great way to describe this because we can't use other words that we don't want to have adult language on here. So weird is going to be the way we're going to go. Abigail, I know that you raised your hand as well. Go for it.
Yeah, so one thing that I've seen, I want to say it was a player quote, and I wish that I could tell you who it was, but that case or not, this was brought up to my attention, was, okay, so the Preds, NHL, nobody's allowed to play in the Olympics, right, during the season. Because why? Because they want to keep everybody safe. Why are they bringing them in during a pandemic? I believe this was a player quote, not my words, but still, that is something to sit and think on. Danielle and I were talking about it earlier. You say that you don't want them to play in the Olympics, but you're going to put them in a pandemic. And I know that they said that if one player gets on the team, it's not going to shut down. We've talked about that. We've seen it. But the thing is, that basically is going to disqualify a team in the long run because you have everybody sitting together. Let's say that the Preds get it. I don't know how the locker rooms are going to be set up, who's going to be beside who, if they're going to have, that social distance, but still everybody's going to be together. So say, I don't know, think of a player. I'm not going to name names because that's just rough. So player A gets it, right? Player B, C, everyone beside him in the locker room gets it. What about a little goal hug? They're gonna have goal hugs. I mean, you're not gonna not do a little sully, right? So that can easily spread around a team so quickly, especially in a hotel. There's gonna be a lot of metal there as well. So that is gonna put a team in danger, the entire team. So are they going to be able to eliminate a team because they got COVID or because they lost in 5 games? And that is my concern, is that this is it is a great plan. Like, they have went over so many concerns, but what if it comes to that point where a player is hit with it and then it keeps going, because it is that easy to get. So we have learned, and so we have seen so far. So they're going to get eliminated because of COVID and not because of what was put out on the ice.
I mean, does everyone remember the mumps breakout that happened? It diminished pretty quickly, luckily, but there was a mumps breakout in NHL locker rooms. Everybody's going, the mumps? What? And the picture of Sidney Crosby always just comes to mind with it's like, no, I don't have the mumps. Like, okay, sure you don't. Danielle, go for it.
Justin, you touched on mental health earlier, and the league ordering 30,000 tests and the daily testing. You have to wonder, what kind of stress is that going to put on a player? What kind of anxiety is that going to put on a player? And there are a lot of players who have said that hockey has made them very anxious and given them problems mentally. So you got to think the stress of the pandemic, and am I going to catch this? I wonder if this player has it. I wonder if I'm going to bring this home to my family. That stress affects their performance on ice. On ice, imagine a player goes up for a hit but doesn't want to come in contact with a player. They're going to have these thoughts because at the end of the day, they have to prioritize themselves and their family. And the chances of any of these guys catching COVID, believe it or not, whether we all want to accept it, it's pretty high. And I know that the league is taking every step possible to prevent the spread, but you got to think at the end of the day, how is their mental health going to stay stable? And is fear really going to be a determining factor in how these guys are able to perform?
And you bring up a good point too, in terms of hopefully the players are going to be respectful to each other in regards to not doing things to antagonize the mental health or the playing of someone, like coughing in somebody's face, like faking sneezing, like making sure you're going up and breathing on someone and messing with them, because a lot of these players know what makes other players tick, and I'm sure all you athletes can speak to this as well, about little things and gray areas that you play in to try to get an advantage over an opponent. It's natural. That's sports. You're trying to do whatever you can to beat the other team. But is there going to be a line naturally drawn by these players, which you hope so, and you hope there is, in terms of respect for the game and for their fellow player, that they don't do things like that? Chirp all you want, say other things within the realm that is safe to say and do, but for the love of God, please don't do any of that crap where they're fake coughing on someone or doing anything like that and making a mockery of it. Because you think as well, hopefully, and this is probably going to be said, look at all the cameras that are probably going to be on this. There's no fans, no fan cams. There's going to be probably a multitude of cameras trying to give us different viewpoints everywhere in the arena, just like NASCAR has the drone doing barrel rolls over everything, because they can do that. There's going to be all different experiences they're going to try to, and Bettman even said this as well, they want to make the broadcast experience something unique and special, because there won't be fans in the stands, that they have opportunities now to do this. So you hope a player doesn't do something stupid where it's caught on camera and ruins their career because they weren't thinking. I know went off in a fully different direction there, but just all these little things that start coming to mind is that you hope it gets addressed as well, and everyone's holding each other accountable too. Sam, did you have something? Sam froze up. All right. Anyone else want to discuss this before we move on to our next topic? There he goes.
There for a minute, and I don't know if you guys still have me, but I think the big thing. Am I here?
I feel like we're watching Zootopia and we're at the DMV.
Okay, there we go. So kind of what I was going to say is, obviously with this, it's going to be weird, because you don't know about the sellies, like Abigail was saying. You saw the LA Kings start doing it in that Toronto game, where they started doing the elbow bumps going by the bench. But it's going to be interesting too, because all these microphones in the arena, are we going to start hearing these guys chirping each other on the broadcast? And that could make for a unique story. But the hub cities, and being a hockey player, even at the travel level, and Justin, I know even playing men's league around the area, it's going to be tough to get back on the ice for the first time in almost 3 months, whenever that is. And, even as a coach too, you got to think about the players. We were supposed to have summer skates starting by now for Franklin Hume Fogg BGA, and we haven't been able to do that. But it's going to be really interesting. Will some of these guys, when they get to training camp, just say, I don't think this is for me? Are they going to say, is it possibly, too much of a risk? Are they not in shape to play right now? We'll see. Will players back out? Will players come back in? And I think that's going to be the big thing, is we're going to have to keep our eyes on this mini training camp before this whole playoff tournament starts.
No, good point. That's going to be a very big thing too, in terms of what happens and what injuries come out of even training camp, as guys might be pushing themselves way too hard there. Jack.
So I don't know if this has been addressed, and this is a question for you, Justin. Has there been a statement by the league that says you will be paid regardless of whether or not you come back to play? I don't think I read or heard anything specific about that, but was there something about that?
They've been discussing paychecks, and when I think their final, because remember, players don't get paid for playoffs. They only get paid for their salary for regular season. Playoffs is non-paid for them. So essentially they've received their last paychecks when it comes to that. Okay. But in terms of escrow and everything there, that is way over my head. Escrow is a very big thing for the players, but I know Bob McKenzie has brought that topic up as well. So let's move on, because I want some people to get updates and everything, because a lot of you we're still going through school and finishing school when the shutdown started and everything, and having to go through that, whether it's online and whatnot. So I just wanted to get some updates. I'm just going to go around the room before we touch on another sad situation going on just south of us here in Huntsville. But Danielle, what's new with you? What's been going on?
So I just graduated high school like 3 days ago online. party. Anyway, but I just recently announced that I am going to the University of Tennessee this fall, and I've taken a position with the Ice Falls organization as their rinkside reporter. So hopefully, go Vols, Jack. But hopefully COVID allows the ACHA to get going this season and to still be able to play. And Abigail, I'll see you on the bench, True Blue over there. But it's been going really well. Graduated, starting college, and I'm very excited for the future. Lots of good things are to come.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Danielle. Super proud of you. And hey, more hockey coverage, especially I know the Ice Falls are going to appreciate that. And hey, maybe some things with the Ice Bears as well. Jack, what's going on with you, bud?
So I finished all my classes last week, and I'm not gonna lie, the transition to online school really sucked. I really did not like online school at all. I prefer the university experience, and I prefer seeing everybody and talking to everybody. But we made it through. I made the dean's list, so things are going well here. Before I got on this call, I was eating a bowl of Lucky Charms and playing Lego Star Wars. So, it's weird how this quarantine is sort of forcing you to like rehash all these old memories and these old feelings about your childhood and stuff. It's been one of the weirdest experiences.
And I know you and Sam have been doing some Twitch streaming as well, playing some games, which has been fun to experience that. We got to get you guys back on Sea of Thieves. We found a new way to make it more interesting and fun, so you can go chop up some skulls.
Thank God, because I'm tired of the rattlesnakes on the island to just bite me out of nowhere. It's like I'm trying to get a banana out of a crate. Can you leave me alone?
What a quote! What a quote! All right, Peyton.
Well, mine's not so happy. So I'm on the job search now, and since the pandemic, I've moved back in with my folks, kind of holding out here, keeping safe. I did have to move out of where I was living in Nashville last week. And then today just finally fully recovered from strep throat. So it's been a little off for me, but I've been through worse. I'm just looking forward to what's coming in the summer, and hopefully we get hockey back soon.
And hey, at least you've been able to enjoy some races, right? Watching races again.
That's right.
All right, Jonah, you're up. What's new with you, bud?
Let's see here. We made the
oh boy, we got Murray County going
two in the fall. Oh boy. All right, am I back? Hopefully. Let's hope so.
Go for it.
So I made the dean's list.
All right.
And then I'm set to graduate Columbia State in the fall, and I'm making my cap community themed. And let's see, one more thing here. We are at the next school after my community college search, which is like a new search. It's a fun search. I didn't get to do it in high school because, your boy just did crazy stuff like steal spirit sticks. Check out my Snapchat story for that one. And that's about it. We've just been vibing, playing some Crash Bandicoot.
Well, like Jack said, all reliving our childhood when it comes to the games. Come on. Abigail, I know you've had some news too.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say y'all are doing great. Congratulations on everything, Danielle. I'm so excited to see you. I'm so excited to say that I will be seeing you on this opposite bench. And this great thing is we're going to be on opposing teams. And then we're also going to come together for penalty box. So we might hate each other for 5 minutes. Intermission runs around, we're together. And it's back better than ever. And I'm so excited I know we've already planned out who's staying in whose dorm and what we're doing there. So I'm so excited for that to come up. So excited. But as far as that goes apart, I have been elected as NSMA, National Sports Media Association's president for MTSU. I was formerly the digital coordinator. I kept my 4.0, and so we gave away the dean's list for some reason, even though whatever. But we're still there, so super excited. As far as personally, I'm just trying to get myself together, trying to pick up a couple more hobbies, writing back again. And one thing that I have yet to announce, which this will be the first, I will be actually going on a show. It's called Blue Raider Extra Point, and I will be on air discussing all football. And so I get to pick up an extra hobby of learning the ins and outs of football, and y'all can see me on air for the first time. So I'm so excited to announce that and be co-hosting with everybody. So I'm so excited. Like Jack said, being on university, being on campus is so entirely different, and I can't wait to be back on campus, be back in the rink, and have my girl to my side all over again. It's going to be so great.
Well, I'm glad your audio kept going even though your video stopped. So we could hear that news. That is awesome. Congratulations, Abigail. Really proud of y'all, everybody. And even if you're going through tough times, being able to power through it and find opportunities and different things. Sam, what you got going on?
So I want to thank you, Jack, and Peyton for participating in the PBR gaming streams over on Twitch. We had a lot of fun with that. Some NHL 3s, tournament dubs. You also saw Jack and I have some rage moments as well, which was quite fun. But, I've been back to work. I've also been playing some golf lately. Glad to be back on the golf course. It's been hard to get out there. But along with Danielle and Abigail, I do have a little bit of an announcement in terms of Penalty Box Radio. So this is something that I did a little bit last year, and I'm very excited to do for a number of games this season. I will be coming back with PBR as the play-by-play voice for the UT Ice Falls in select games this season. So I'm looking forward to going back up to Knoxville. I had a great time on the Clemson weekend. Obviously, Danielle was there, and I featured in the blooper reel of that when we were trying to get the camera situated. And then a great call against Vanderbilt, a great team up there led by Drew King. I know we have Cameron Martz up there as well, a good friend of ours. So, Justin, though, I am just ready to get some men's league hockey back. I have not been on the ice in a while. My last game, I had a hat trick, and then everything kind of slowed down. So
it's your fault.
Yeah, I guess it is my fault technically, but I'm ready to see some hockey. I'm also excited about the PGA Tour coming back. PGA Tour 2K21. Let's have some fun with that.
Yeah, speaking of men's league, it's one of those things we heard from Forward Ice Center. They'll be opening up shortly, coming up in June, and men's league, it's looking like it's probably going to come back at the end of June. Looking to speak with Danny Butler, who is the general manager of Forward Ice Center, to get more details on that. I do know, for instance, the locker rooms are going to be closed. So they're going to be socially distancing everyone there because you won't be able to have spectators there, which, I mean, for men's league, usually the spectators are the teammates on the bench.
Dressing, Justin, again, we're going back to our days when we were termites.
I mean, it might have to be home dressing, or you're getting into your skivvies out there in the middle of the rink. So,
Justin, you're used to home dressing, though.
Haven't heard that one from anybody yet either. So yeah, it's slowly coming back, and I know they're trying to do it as safely as possible. And we see people commenting on things, complaining about why can't it open? Why can't it open? It's like, well, they open, and then they do open, and then they're not happy with how they've opened. It's like, what do you want? They're trying to bring back hockey. They're trying to give you a place to play, or at least get some exercise and some activity. So it's very curious to see all this. And we got to think too, to remind people, especially with the rink that is run by the Predators and Metro, liability is going to be a very, very big thing coming into this. And so they want to take as many precautions as possible when opening up these facilities, because liability, if you don't know a lawyer in your life, ask them about it, because that's what's really coming into play here with a lot of these things reopening. So before we close, I want to make sure we touch on this because it's a very important topic, because Penalty Box Radio is so big about growing hockey in the South. And there's a situation going on in Huntsville where last Friday, the Friday before the Memorial Day weekend, in the afternoon, it was announced the UAH, the University of Alabama at Huntsville, was eliminating their Division I men's hockey program, as well as their men's and women's tennis teams. So, part of that news, we had exclusive interviews with Cade Smith, who is the athletic director, and head coach Mike Corbitt, to talk about this and how it's really started back when the 7 teams of the WCHA said they're going to leave and reform the CCHA, because it's leaving a team without a conference. And we all know how expensive travel is, especially with hockey. We all know how expensive hockey as a sport is, with equipment and travel and everything. But there's been this movement on GoFundMe. We're trying to raise money that if they can raise $500,000 in 5 days, which is a very tight goal to have in 5 days, that then they'll look back into saving the program. So Peyton Turnage, who's been the play-by-play voice for the UAH Chargers, touch on this topic a little bit, man.
Well, this news dropped the day after I had to leave Nashville, and then also was the day I got sick. So I was having a really good whirlwind there. But it seems like this decision came as more of a hasty decision by the president of the university. He says that due to coronavirus and what it's done economically. That's the main factor. But we know there's also been some negatives on the program lately. They haven't been able to win very much. They haven't. If they make the playoffs, they don't get very far. They only had 2 wins last year. So it's been the whole multitude of things. And but now you're seeing with that fundraiser, you're seeing the support, you're seeing the grassroots effort from everybody in the community of how much Charger hockey really matters. And I'm really proud to see the step up. At the time of this call, I think it was about maybe 215,000. You said that this fundraiser was a 5-day thing, and we've just reached the halfway point of that during this phone call. And I was hoping we could at least get to 250,000 by now. If we can get halfway, it's kind of strange, but maybe those that pitched in, maybe if they can paid what they did before a second time and really get the ball rolling on this. Hopefully, if it does fall short, hopefully it's not by very much. Hopefully they get the benefit of the doubt. But it's been a tough situation. But your interview with Mike Corbitt was tremendous. It really shows how hard that guy works and how much he cares. I highly encourage everyone to check that out. There's something brewing here, and hopefully the program can be saved after all.
And I think, too, to remind those listening and watching, Huntsville produces a lot of hockey players. People may not realize, but hockey is very strong in Huntsville, and it originates back to the Chargers. They start off as a club team, D2. They won 2 national championships as a D2 team. So it's not like there's not history there in Huntsville with winning. It's been a little more of a struggle being D1, but they've made appearances in the NCAA tournament as well as a D1 team. So it's not like they haven't accomplished things. It's been rough lately, but it's there. The history is there. We've even seen players from Jared Ross, the first player born in Alabama, make it to the NHL and played for the Philadelphia Flyers for a few games. Josh Kessner made it all the way to the AHL, and he was the player of the year for the ECHL, the Walleye. So they produce some talent. Cam Talbot. I mean, there's a story that came out on NHL.com about Cam Talbot trying to help this as well. So plenty of history there. And whatever happens to hockey in Huntsville, college hockey in Huntsville, it's not fully dead. It's going to continue to move on. We're going to do everything we can to continue to grow hockey in the South because there's lots of products down there in Huntsville that deserve a place to play. And that's the problem overall in the United States is that we don't have enough D1 college hockey teams to give players opportunities to play that sport. And it's not like it's an oversaturation problem at all. Players are leaving to go play in other places, whether it's in major juniors or Europe or other places, when we could be keeping them here at home and developing them as American hockey players, but we're not because we don't have enough D1 programs. Yeah, Long Island University added one, but then you subtract Huntsville, there's one less place for these guys to play. And it hurts too because they're having to recruit some Canadian players to come in and play because there's not enough. All the American players are going to other places. So that's the problem here is that as the amount of players playing the sport of hockey grows, we're not seeing that growth happen with Division I college hockey programs to give them a place to further their education as well as further their development and everything when it comes to hockey. And that's one of the big problems right now in college hockey is that we don't have enough. It's not expanding the way it should be. And people need to be putting up more money for it because it's there and supporting programs, especially like UAH, and doing things that they possibly can. So hopefully it comes through. Hopefully you can find a way, but after that, it's another challenge of finding a conference. It's so difficult to be an independent, especially in the South, without a conference. You don't have enough opponents to play, and it's hard for people to schedule you because Huntsville is also not a big airport to fly in. A lot of them fly into Nashville and bus down. So there's so many different logistical things, but hopefully they can find a way to keep it going and then give some more time to figure out a solution. Anyone want to comment on that before we have to go? Sam, go for it.
Yeah, so I actually got the chance back in 2013 to go watch UAH play live at the Von Braun Center, and I had a blast. It was a fun game, and it was cool to see NCAA hockey in the South. You just don't really think about that, but you also see the Huntsville Havoc down there, the 2-time or 3-time now back-to-back President's Trophy or President's Cup, I forget what they call it, in the SPHL champions. They're a very talented team and bring out a great crowd every night. It's a shame to see a program like UAH, unfortunately, have to fold, but I really do hope it comes back. You look at the local products from Nashville that are down there. You have Lucas Bond, who was one of my really good friends and a very talented defenseman who was playing on that team, and Jay Powell, a kid who I actually went to school with up here in Nashville for a little bit. So I really hope that UAH can come back around, because it's a great potential for Southern hockey to grow, and we could see more club teams like Illinois. I know they're up north, but they're getting ready to make that jump to NCAA. And to Peyton, I've been privileged enough to get the chance to work with you. And I know another opportunity, no matter what it is going to come. And I'm very thankful I got the chance to call that SEC championship with you.
Well, I appreciate that. And of course, we're going to work a lot more in the future for sure.
Jack, I know you raised your hand.
Yeah, it's just not the same as the studio, is it, with that mute button? But man, I just want to say, my heart goes out to Peyton Turnage right now. I mean, I know you're dealing with some things, and know that we're trying to save the program, we're trying to save your job. But let me tell you something: there are a lot of ECHL, AHL teams that would love to have your voice. There are a lot of college hockey programs out there that would love to hear your voice. And, you have represented the Alabama Huntsville program very well over the last couple of years. And, Penalty Box Radio is very, very proud of you. Also, congratulations to Sam, Abigail, Danielle, and Jonah for their individual accomplishments. I'm especially excited to see where all of you all go in the next couple of years. And in terms of the Alabama Huntsville program, man, that is just such a shame. It is just such a shame that we have to go through this process. UAH has definitely not been kind to its sports programs in the last decade, and it's a shame that hockey is going through that. But the fact that we've almost raised $250,000 in less than 5 days to save this program speaks a lot to what hockey means to Alabama Huntsville fans and to the players and to the parents and, the people that want to drive 4 hours on a Friday night to cover it. One of the best memories I have of my freshman year of college was taking a weekend trip down to Huntsville and listening to Peyton call the game. And Justin and I took that little trip down there in November, and it was a lot of fun. And it was a lot of fun to watch Alabama Huntsville play, really good hockey. They may not have won, but it was still tight, competitive, good hockey. And, if anything, give back to your community. Give back and support your local hockey teams. That's Penalty Box Radio's message. Support your local hockey teams. And I think that, they ought to give everybody the benefit of the doubt if we're able to even get near $500,000 in 5 days. I mean, that is just absolutely incredible, the fact that we've raised that much money thus far.
Yeah, good points, Jack. Well, everyone, I really do appreciate your time and for joining us. It's great to talk hockey again. I know there's ups and downs with it, but it's just great to talk about the sport that we love, whether it's college hockey, professional hockey, men's league hockey. It's just great to be able to get everybody together and talk about it. And I know this is not the end. We're going to try to do more of these. So folks watching, want more, make sure you comment and subscribe, whatever you can do to make sure you tell us you want more of these things. We want to continue to give our opinions and provide you with that and provide you insight on everything on Penalty Box Radio. So make sure you're following everybody on social media, especially on Twitter. That means you guys have to behave on Twitter now. But make sure you give everybody here a follow, because they all have fun, unique information they're always sharing. And if you have another Twitch stream, Sam, make sure you all are turning into that, because there was one moment where I got shot in the head with a cannonball that we were able to capture. And that was a lot of fun. And there was some bad language involved. Well, everybody, say goodbye to our watchers. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Thanks everyone for tuning in to Penalty Box Radio. This is Justin Bradford for Danielle, Jack, Abigail, Jonah, Peyton, and Sam. We'll see you next time.